Hello guys, what's up? This is alertwolf here. I am gonna give you a video now. This is my last video I'm shooting tonight. Basically, on one of the first videos I said I was gonna do, it just took me a while to do. And, well actually I shot it once before, but it went too long, so I'm gonna try to condense it this time. And what I'm doing is, this is gonna be a video on the Galaxy S3 versus the iPhone 5 versus the Nokia 920. I'm going to try to rate these things as which one I think is going to be the best seller and which one is the most innovative and which one's the best overall value for the money. The only exception is the Nokia, I believe, hasn't been released. It has not been released yet, and the pricing point hasn't, but a release date has. So, right into it. Since I don't own the phones myself, and I am not one of these guys that has super money or funding of some sort that I can get a hold of these phones. I'm just going to run down the specs, and I'm not going to get too much into the operating systems, just to give you a general idea of, on paper, which one of these phones is the one you should go with. Now, obviously, there are 3 different platforms here, and people are going to gravitate towards the platform they like. That aside, like personally right here, you see I own a Samsung Focus. It's the first one. And this is a Windows Phone 7, Generation 1. It's been upgraded to 7.5. So that's what I'm running with right now, so you get an idea of where things are. Alright, so let's get into it. Let's go right into the Galaxy S3. Now I'm using my phone to cheat because I have all the stats here on my phone. Why not? And obviously the Android S is 3 is going to be using, it's going to be on Android, it's going to be on Ice Cream Sandwich, and what I've heard is they're going to put out the update very soon. It might even already be out for Jelly Bean. So it's running a Qualcomm S4 1.5 dual-core processor. Very powerful processor. And now, I do know that in the European market, they're running the quad-core version of the same thing. I'm not going to touch that. This is going to be about the American version. 2 gigs of RAM. Very, very great for running this machine. Well, and the other thing is you have to realize, out of the 3, I'm not sure about Ice Cream Sandwich, but out of the 3 different operating systems, Android's the heaviest. It requires more battery, more of the CPU, and more RAM to run. It just does. It's a heavier operating system to run. I know Android users don't like to hear that, but it's very true. It's much heavier. Like if you were to go to a Windows 7 phone, you would be like, what? You know, it's that light, and it's just a completely different thing. And as for the iOS 6, they've been streamlining the iOS to get faster and more stable, at least on the newer hardware. So, moving right along, it comes in a 16 gig or 32 gig option, and it has an expandable SD card, and it's the only one of these phones that does. I don't understand why the other phones don't. This is a big point for them too. The other thing to mention is I think it comes in white, like a blue, which is almost a black, and yeah, I think white and black is what it, and red. I think AT&T has it in red too. So those are, it's not a shiny red, it's like a duller red, I think, but alright. Then they're all these phones are 4G LTE. You have an 8 megapixel camera in the back. You know, I think it's a, let's see, it also has a front-facing 1.9 megapixel camera for the video. I think the one in back can do 1080p video. The one in front can do 720p video. And you know, the camera in front is okay as far as these guys are concerned. Bluetooth 4. Both do Wi-Fi. Both do GPS and GLONASS, or whatever. I don't even know how the proper way of saying that is. Basically, the more advanced form of global positioning. You know, it's better. Alright, so that's good. NFC support, yes to the NFC. Now NFC, you see the commercials, tap phones, and share information. NFC is replacing infrared, and it's very broadband but short range. So NFC is very cool. And I think, if you have a next generation phone and don't have NFC, something's wrong with your manufacturer, honestly, because that's the future right now. And so many new things are using it. People are loving it. All right, compass, gyroscope, barometer, accelerometer, and light. So it has all that. All right. Now this guy is going to be pretty big. I think it's a 4.8 inch screen. I don't know why I somehow skipped the screen. 4.8 inch screen. So it's going to be the biggest screen out of these phones, but it is 1280 by 720, so it's a 720p screen. Super AMOLED display. You're going to get a lot of bright colors out of that display. But coming in at pixels per inch, it is 306, which is the smallest of all these phones we're going to talk about today. So it's going to be not as sharp as any of the other two phones. But that being said, I think when you add, some people like that huge screen. Now I'm going to get into screens real fast. I think the right balance for a screen is between 4 and 5 inches, and anywhere in between is cool. Then it just goes into personal preference and how big your hand is. So for people who like large phones, this phone is pretty good. I'm gonna say right now there are coming out better Android flagship phones that are coming out, but these are just on the current flagship phones. The LG Optimus, I think, beats this thing, and it's a powerhouse, but it's huge. So right now, I say this is a well-balanced phone. Great camera, or good camera, very good camera. NFC supported, excellent features that way, and a pretty good screen. None of these screens are bad, by the way. So let's move on, and I'm going to say this is probably, until we know the thing, this is probably going to be a large seller for Android. Next, we're going to move on to the iOS 5. I mean, the iPhone 5 and iOS 6. Now, let me get something right off. The hype for this phone is too big for the phone. I think if there was no hype for the iPhone the way it is now, this phone would be looked at as a lot better. So I'm going to be a little critical just to cut through the hype that surrounds this phone. So I'm going to put that disclaimer out now. Let's get right into it. The iOS 6 is is a streamlined version of iOS 5. A couple of new features, nothing worth noting. They added the maps, their 3D mapping, which does not work. And you had the CEO saying, go use Nokia maps and go use Bing maps, because our maps are no good right now. I mean, it's a feature they rushed and it's not there yet. Having said that, turn-by-turn navigation is not new, guys. Not revolutionary. Hell, it doesn't even work for you. It is, the 3D display is cool, but it is very old and it's been on everybody else's smartphone for as long as I can remember. Just get that out of the way. Alright, so it's not a plus. Alright, then you have, it's a 4-inch, 1136 by 640 in-cell IPS LCD screen. It's basically their 720p screen, even though it says 640. It's basically 720. It is a 16.9 aspect ratio, and it is 326 pixels per inch. This is going to be this is their Retina display for a cell phone. Now again, guys, let me explain something. Retina display on a cell phone just means their 720p screen. And as a matter of fact, it actually only means 326. This, however, because I forget the guy's name, but I had a discussion with somebody on a forum, or not a forum, on a different YouTube video discussing these three phones. And we were arguing about the screens. He was claiming that this screen is better than the Nokia screen, which I'm going to get into in a second. but I said it wasn't, and he says, well, you know, because the Nokia screen has a higher pixels per inch, and it's a bigger screen, and it, you know, whatever. So he was saying that if you were to stretch the iPhone screen to match, that the resolution you would get, or pixels per inch, would be 4 something, right? This is what he said. And I said, you know, it's not possible. But in reality, none of what he said made any sense, was true, because I didn't just do, you know what it was? I hadn't done my homework on the previous iPhone in a while. So I forgot this. The pixels per inch is the same on this iPhone as was on the 4S. They just stretched the screen to make it 4 inches, which, by the way, this phone has 4 inches, and I've had this phone for 2 years. So 4 inches isn't new, 4 inches isn't revolutionary. It is for you guys, but it's not that special. And the pixels per inch didn't change. So your resolution did not change between your two screens, it just got bigger. And that means, whereas it is an impressive screen, you who use the 4S all the time are going to notice the difference, because it's going to seem fuzzier to you. So I mean, me personally, it has better resolution than the screen I'm using now. I would think it's a nice screen. If I was switching to it, I would think it was a great screen. But if I was switching from another iPhone, I think it's great that it's bigger, but it looks kind of it looks a little, you know, a little stretched out to me. It wouldn't look as clear. I would probably notice the difference. So their screen, not that big of a positive point, but they finally gave people what they wanted. All right, I'm gonna try to make this a little faster. All right, now you got the models. They said, all right, the RAM is 1 gigabyte of RAM. And iPhone only comes in black or white. Black or white, yeah. So then the storage capacity, 16 to 64, you know, 16, 32, and 64-bit models. Ranging at ridiculous price ranges. I say if you need memory, 32 is cool, but if you need a lot of memory, you have to pay for the 64. But it's the price difference, I think, is $100 more. It's almost not worth it. No micro SD card. Apple is against them. Boo, boo, boo. All right. I'm going to say this. They changed connectors on you. So that's a big not selling point. But before you Apple guys get all furious about this, it's about time. I'm going to say this again. It's about time. Everybody else, every 2 years, changes, or almost every phone, they change the connector. Now the industry went on a standard by using micro USB. I personally hate micro USB. I find that it's too sensitive a wire, and those wires break all the time. So hopefully this wire, which is similar to micro SD, is a little better. It's you can plug it in on either way. Like, that's fucking hard to do in the dark, you know what I mean? Like, oh man, I put it in this way, it didn't work. Oh, if I did this, I saved all of 2 seconds. It's not time saving, it's not revolutionary, but it is about time. The only thing that sucks is everything you own, you now have to have an adapter for to use in conjunction, and get a new car charger and all of that, and all your spare wall chargers no longer work. So yeah, people are going to be miffed about this, but it's about time. That's all I got to say. It gets done to everybody else. It was bound to happen to you guys. So, all right, let's go into the camera. Again, all things LTE. People are going to brag about how LTE is super cool. LTE's been around for at least a year. So, you know, again, not revolutionary. All right, your 8 megapixel camera. 2.4 aperture, I believe. Alright, they basically didn't improve this all that much. They did add a panoramic mode that is pretty cool with the software. But guys, panoramic phones on a cell phone, panoramic pictures have existed forever. It's been around. And if your phone didn't do it, you could have downloaded an app to make it work. So look, my dad had the CyberShot camera phone back in the day, 8 megapixel camera, big lens in back, beautiful pictures. He had panoramic shots on there. With software, at least 2 or 3 different softwares that I have on this phone right now, I get panoramic shots. And it wasn't built into this thing. So panoramic shots, not revolutionary. Sorry. And they didn't really improve this camera that much between the two. What they did improve, though, and spend their time, is the front-facing camera. The front-facing camera is a 1.2 megapixel camera, so it's better than VGA. They made it very wide angle, so you could get a lot of viewing room. Again, 1080p in the back, 720p in the front. I've seen videos that people have shot and put up on YouTube. The video on the 720p looks great for a 1.2 megapixel camera phone. You know, so that's good. There's nothing wrong there. All right. Again, Bluetooth 4, Wi-Fi, GPS, GLONASS, no NFC. What the hell were you thinking? Why are you waiting on this? You son of a bitch. Apple. Again, poor people are going to have to wait maybe 2 years, or the next model, 1 year, 1 to 2 years before they get NFC, and everybody else is going to be bragging about the features and the things this thing can do. I don't know what the hell is wrong with you. Alright, they gave it a slightly bigger battery. It's supposed to have a good battery. I'm not getting into battery life. I don't believe any of them. And that's basically the thing. So, what I'm going to say, this is probably going to be your best seller, because Apple only sells one phone, whereas I believe the Android will be the #2 selling phone. And I believe eventually Android will sell more phones, or Samsung will sell more phones than Apple, because Samsung has other models they will sell, whereas Apple just has the one. Alright. Trying to cut this video down, but now let's get into the Nokia 920 running Windows Phone 8. Now, I haven't played with Windows Phone 8. It is the upgrade to mine, so I will say this. I'm looking forward to it. It looks pretty awesome. They streamlined it a lot. It's going to be fully integrated with Windows 8 themselves. They're going to use the same kernel. So right now, people's biggest complaint, I'm only going to get into this lightly, is, oh, there's not enough apps. As if 100,000 apps, it's closer to 150 now, is not a lot of apps. I know Android has 500,000, and I'm not sure how much Apple has. It's somewhere in between. And people are like, haha, Android has more apps. But does it matter? You can only get, people only use about 10 to 20 apps, and that's not even including video games on their phone. And, you know, the video games on this phone use Xbox Live, so it's not even that big of a deal. But what I'm saying is, because of the new kernel and the way integration works, is you're going to start to see all the things that could have being ported over anyway. So, that being said, let's move right along. Now, the Nokia phone comes in ridiculous colors. Yellow, red, gray, black, white, cyan. All the colors are amazing. Now, oh, I forgot to say this real fast on the iPhone. The iPhone, its thing it's not Gorilla Glass. It's made by Gorilla Glass, and the back is made of aluminum, and it's super scratchy. And they also brag about being the smallest and thinnest 4-inch screen phone in the market, and they're right. And comparing all three phones, it will be the lightest. But this phone used to be, say again, 4 inches. You know, this phone used to be the thinnest, smallest phone on the market. I mean, it has a little cover right here 2 years ago. So obviously, the iPhone is smaller than this, but it is not revolutionary when you think about it, because 2 years to get slightly thinner than this one, not that big of an accomplishment. But moving right along, and the Galaxy S3 has a thin, crappy plastic back. People complain about it, but if you put one of these on it, like I did with this phone, you're not even going to notice the lack of weight feel on it. That being said, the Nokia 920 is polycarbonate, solid piece of, it's not plastic, it's polycarbonate, it's better than plastic, but it's a solid piece of material. It feels super nice in your hands, but this phone is a beast. It's heavier. It is going to be the heaviest phone out of all three. It's running a 4.5-inch screen. Alright, so it's 1280 by 768 IPS. It's a super... So basically, what we're saying here is, it is better than 720p picture. This is 768 picture. So it's better than all the other ones so far. It's running a super sensitive touchscreen, let me get into the super sensitive touch. This means, ladies at home with your fingernails, you can now use your nails and not have to worry about like thumbing it and handing it. That's a big issue for my mom and sister, for that matter. You don't have to worry. You know, I bought them pens to do it. Now you don't need the pens. And you can use the regular old styluses from back in the day, because they'll now work again. And it's super sensitive and configured against accidental touching. Then when you combine that, it has a 332 pixels per inch, so PPI. So this means it has the most sharp resolution of any of the three phones. And so it's better than 720. It has more pixels per inch. It's more sensitive. And what makes this screen revolutionary is 60 frames per second. They don't even list what the other phones do. I don't know if they're like 30. I know their video gets shot in 30, so I'm going to assume. But 60 frames per second. You know, video game systems are just now getting to 60 frames per second. High-end TVs are 60 frames or better. Or, you know, 120 frames per second. So you're talking about a super sharp, a lot of resolution, and the thing has so many frames, no blurring when you touch it. None. It is going to be the smoothest, crispest. You just try playing a video game on that thing. You know what I'm trying to say? You try watching a video on that thing too. It is going to look amazing, 60 frames per second, and it's a 768p screen. So, the best screen out of anything, the most innovative screen. I'm going to say it right now, guys, this is the most innovative phone on the market, or will be on the market. Super sensitive touch, nobody else is doing this, they just invented it. 60 frames per second is huge, and a better screen than the iPhone 5. So, and this is why it's a better screen, all around better screen. And it's leaps and bounds better than the limitations given to phones on the Windows 7.5. Okay, you also going to have a Qualcomm S4 1.5 gigahertz dual core, and that's the latest chip that they do. Now, I will say this. The operating system was configured specifically for multi-core processors, so it's going to really utilize this. Now, I know this operating system isn't going to be as light as Windows 7, but it's going to be... But it's not going to be that much heavier, is what I'm trying to say. And it's going to be optimized well. So it's interesting to see how this processor makes this machine run. Forgot to mention that on the iPhone. I don't know how I missed that. The iPhone has the A6 processor. And the A6 processor, I will say this, it is what impresses me about the phone if it lives up to the hype. It's supposed to be streamlined and double the speed of their A5 processor. Of course, since they never give you the specs on anything, your guess is as good as mine, but from other reviews I've seen, it is the most impressive thing on the iPhone 5, and it's what I commend them for, the A6. So I'm sorry I left that out there, you guys, and I don't know how I skipped that line, but I did. Alright, 1 gig of RAM, still very good, and again, considering how light the system should be, 1 gig of RAM is plenty. 32 gig hard drive. Now, for 90% of the people, that's going to be great. For me, I'm taking a little step back. Although this has an 8 gig hard drive, I do have a 32 gig SD card. This is the only Generation 1 phone that had that, because you couldn't take it out. That was the limitation. They couldn't figure it out right, so they stopped doing it. And I might notice the difference, because I like a lot of high-end stuff. But I can scale it down, and it should be fine. Again, 4G LTE for everything. Alright, the camera on this is amazing. It's a 8.7 megapixel camera, so the highest resolution camera there. It has a nice Carl Zeiss lens. It has pure view optic technology behind it. And what that means is this thing is and it has their motion sensor thing. So basically, it's a floating eye. And what happens is the eye is in this thing that has all these springs. So when you move, it's like a cup of water. You know what I'm saying? You ever move a cup of water, move the cup, and see the water doesn't actually move in the cup. The cup is just moving. See what I'm saying? It's similar to that. The aperture is supposed to be awesome. Very, very good at low light. I will say that's what all three phones are supposed to be very good in low light, and this phone, because that's the new thing now, right? So this phone's supposed to be amazing in low light. Now, I will say this, Nokia, they did fudge all their early pictures and videos. They fudged it, and they got caught. Now, I will say this, everybody does that. You know, to you haters out there thinking iPhone didn't do this, or Samsung doesn't do this, everybody does this. The difference is, in one or two pictures, you could see a reflection, which was lazy on their part. I guess they thought nobody would notice, and they didn't scrub the reflection. And, you know, what you saw was a high-end camera. Basically, these are prototypes designed to simulate, but they're like expensive rigs. Anybody who believes the pictures on the websites initially represent the actual pictures you're going to be taking is an idiot. I'm just sorry, it's not true. It's going to be very close, it's going to be similar, but these are professional photographers using lighting, using every trick they have in their disposal to really optimize these shots. You're never going to do as good as them. And chances are they didn't use the technology that they're talking about. At least initially. You know, and then after a little while they'll put out real stuff. But what I'm saying is here, don't hate on Nokia. Just feel bad they got caught. Everybody does this. Alright, moving right along. They have, like I said, so they have an innovative, supposed to be it's what people are looking forward to. It's supposed to be one of the best camera phones on the market when it gets released, as far as the technology behind it. Again, it has panoramic shots, it's had it since the 920. It has city lens. Now, city lens is innovative. They already put it out on the old phones, but it's really going to get used in Windows Phone 8 and in the Nokia Maps and Drive. By the way, you also get Nokia Maps and Drive, which is turn-by-turn navigation. You've been getting them since the Lumia. But the way the City Lens works is, I'm going to try to be fast about this, is City Lens is you turn your camera on, you're looking at the screen, and then the screen will look at your area using your GPS and tell you where stuff is. And then you would click on it, get directions to it, get information on it. But it's going to, especially in the cities, it's going to identify every building and what's in there. Like, oh, this is a blah, 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 depending on your category. Now, they're going to integrate it further, which is something that you don't have now with the Nokia Maps. When this happens, you can use the software to identify somewhere you want to go. Click it. It's going to then switch you to the GPS navigation, turn-by-turn voice. You're going to go there, and it's going to switch you back when you get close and actually show you which building it is. So that's super cool. That's their innovation to the maps. And the City Lens is innovative. The 3D is a gimmick. This is innovation, in my opinion. Now, moving along, again, 1080p picture, but with the stabilization thing, awesome. Alright, it's a 1.9 megapixel in the front. They improved this from the last model, and it's also 720p video. That's also standard coming out of the front lens. The front lens is cool. Oh, you also get a dual flash in back, so that's good for the red eye and all that. Again, GPS, GLONASS, whatever. Alright, NFC support, yes. And I'm going to combine this with, not only does it have NFC, but it also has inductive charging. Inductive charging is that flat mat, you lay your thing on top, and it's charging. Now, the reason why I'm combining these two features is I'm telling you how cool these things are. I already described to you what NFC does. Near field communication is what it stands for. The other one, laying your phone down flat and charging it on a flat surface. Now, inductive charging is not as fast as a regular charger, and you're going to get both in this. But JBL is putting out their own, it's almost like an iDock or an iHome, whatever the hell you call that radio that the iPods play on. The difference is, the way it works is, with the NFC and the flat charging, you just tap it, it syncs to the player, you lay it down, and then it's just charging on top of your radio and playing the music. Awesome. This one currently says it's on Bluetooth. I believe they're going to put it to Bluetooth 4, although, and it's going to be on Gorilla Glass 2, and so is the Samsung, by the way, Gorilla Glass 2. So that is some super cool stuff. There's going to be expensive accessories for all these things. It's using I believe it's going to use an audio enhancer with Adobe, so when you plug it in to something to play music, it's going to sound better, which is great because for people like me, this is my MP3 player, this is what I use it for, this is super cool. And so I'm going to say hands down, this phone is the most innovative. I mean, it is the heaviest phone. It's not she is not the thin chick to the ball. It doesn't have the biggest screen, but it has it's still 4.5 inches, pretty huge. So you're gonna look at this thing. It has the best screen out of any of the three. It has the best rear camera. It is up there with its front-facing camera, and then you could argue which one you think is better. It definitely has. I like the software personally better, the operating system, but that's personal preference. You can get into that you like. I think it's the freshest thing out, and I think it's the most intuitive and easier to learn. I'm just going to say that. But that's my personal opinion because I'm a Windows Phone user. So, you know, you have your own opinion. I think it's fresh, whereas I think the Apple software is stale. It's very the same. I mean, internally it's quick and it's super fast. So I'm not doubting its internals. But I'm saying externally, it is very, very the same, very stagnant, very stale. It hasn't changed at all. That's a bad thing. People are getting bored with the operating system. As for Android, Android is too open. It's all over the place. You know, this is just a quick little thing on Android. Almost every other phone has a different version of the same software or running different platforms, or the older one or the newer one. And oh man, I got the latest the Android, but it didn't come with the latest Android operating system. And everybody else, every operating system gets optimized for the phone to have their own custom version of that operating system. So what a Samsung can do, not necessarily an HTC can do or an LG can do. It's very, very uneven that way and too open. But I'm just going to say that. All right. Now the Nokia, I believe right now the 920 has been slated to just be released on AT&T, and I think I don't know how long it is. I think it's supposed to go to Verizon, and I think Verizon's going to add a 2 to the model, and it's supposed to go eventually to T-Mobile. And Sprint, I'm sorry you guys at home, Sprint says no to Windows Phone this go-around. So you probably may see it next go-around. They said no to it. So I know there's a small loyal base for Windows Phone on Sprint, and you're waiting for that next generation of phone to come out, and it's not going to hit you. I'm sorry. You may want to think about changing carriers, if that's what you want, or switching to one of these other beautiful phones that I just mentioned. So, like I said, so I just think the Nokia isn't going to sell as much as the other three, but it's going to be one of the top 3 phones. This is why I mentioned these 3. I think it's the most innovative, the most revolutionary, and this time around, it is the standard. That being said, I think the second place phone, from all-around features to sales, is going to be the Galaxy S3. It is not going to be, now I'm going to put this out there, it's going to be the number 2 selling phone. It's not going to beat the iPhone, but it's going to be the number 2 selling phone. As far as features go, it does everything the iPhone can do, and it does NFC. So what more can I say? It's a bigger screen. Again, that could be a drawback for some people. And it's just a solid phone. It is super nice, even though the screen is huge and the resolution isn't as good as the other 2. Unless you have them side by side, you're not going to notice it. You're going to be happy with what you got. Believe me, the RAM plus the extra RAM is a plus on this phone, and you're going to notice the difference. All right, and then my third place phone. These are all around. I'm going to say this phone is going to be the best selling phone. But as far as innovation this time around, Apple, stop suing people and start innovating. You've gotten too comfortable at the top. You're not pushing the boundaries. This phone didn't push any boundary. Again, solid processor. I think it's probably the best processor currently out of these three phones. But processors alone won't sell a phone. Hype alone will float you this phone, but if things don't change on your next phone, you already lost the debate here. You know what I'm trying to say? But you're still going to sell everything because people are just going to buy iPhone for iPhone. I think the change of screen is a plus. The processor is a plus. The fact that you can get to 64 is a plus, but it is not a plus because it's $100 more. So I'm going to call that a neutral there. The screen still looks great. Again, 4 inches, people have been waiting for, and I currently run a 4-inch screen. I think it's a great size, but I'm looking for something bigger. So I think that's it. This video has gone on now for quite a while. Trying to zoom in on this. Quite a while. And so, like I said, enjoy. And this is alertwolf saying, click it up if you like it, comment if you must, subscribe if you can, and this is alertwolf out.